Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei has mocked US President Donald Trump's claim of destroying Iran's nuclear sites, calling him dreaming. The video covers Trump's June airstrikes on Iran's Fordo, Natanz and Isfahan facilities, Tehran's denial of serious damage, and rising global tensions. With both leaders doubling down on defiance, the standoff highlights escalating US-Iran rivalry and the growing risk of renewed Middle East confrontation. Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei has fired back at Washington, mocking President Donald Trump's latest claim that the United States destroyed Iran's nuclear facilities. Speaking in Tehran, Khamenei declared that the American president was, in his words, dreaming. His statement, aired on state television, came just hours after Trump once again boasted that US airstrikes in June had annihilated Iran's main enrichment sites. The Supreme Leader's defiant tone reflected both anger and confidence, a message directed not only at Washington, but also at regional rivals and allies watching from afar. In his televised address, Khamenei ridiculed Trump's narrative. The US president boasts that he has destroyed Iran's nuclear industry. Fine, keep dreaming. But who are you to say what a country should or shouldn't have if it possesses a nuclear industry? The remark drew applause from senior Iranian officials present in the hall, a clear sign that Tehran's leadership intends to frame the June strikes as largely symbolic, not strategic. Khamenei's words echoed across Persian-language media, framed as proof that Iran's program had survived what the West portrayed as a crushing blow. For weeks, Washington has described the June 22nd attack as a decisive success. In that overnight operation, the United States targeted 3 of Iran's most sensitive nuclear sites, Fordo, Natanz, and Isfahan. These are the same names long familiar to Western intelligence agencies and to anyone following the nuclear dispute that has stretched across 2 decades. Trump's televised statement from the White House followed almost the same script used during his earlier military triumphs. A short time ago, he began, the US military carried out massive precision strikes on the 3 key nuclear facilities in the Iranian regime, Fordo, Natanz, and Isfahan. In his speech, he told Americans that those strikes were a spectacular military success, insisting Iran's nuclear enrichment capacity had been completely and totally obliterated. He called the Islamic Republic the bully of the Middle East and said it must now make peace or face future attacks far greater and a lot easier. Trump's rhetoric was vintage campaign-era bravado, part foreign policy theatre, part political messaging to his domestic base. His language mixed military praise, religious overtones, and appeals to patriotism. God bless the Middle East, God bless Israel, and God bless America, he concluded to cheers from supporters. But in Tehran, that message landed very differently. Satellite images released by Planet Labs and Japan's JAXA shortly after the attacks did show smoke plumes and heat signatures around the Fordo site, yet analysts noted that key underground structures appeared intact. Iranian officials quickly invited state media cameras to film technicians walking through corridors that, according to Washington, had been reduced to rubble. In Isfahan province, Iranian television broadcast grainy footage of what it claimed were secondary explosions at a vehicle inspection center, not a nuclear site, roughly 30 kilometers from the city of Shareza. The images showed twisted metal and scorched asphalt, but no sign of radioactive contamination or destroyed centrifuge halls. For Iran's leadership, those pictures were proof that the US narrative was exaggerated. For the Trump administration, they were irrelevant. The message to domestic audiences was clear. America had struck hard, Israel had helped, and Iran had been humiliated. During his speech, Trump repeatedly credited Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu for the operation's success, saying the 2 governments had worked like perhaps no team has ever worked before. He praised the great American patriots who flew those magnificent machines and singled out General Dan Razin Kane and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth for planning what he called an operation the likes of which the world has not seen in many decades. Yet the international reaction was far from celebratory. European capitals expressed alarm that Washington had acted unilaterally, bypassing both the UN Security Council and NATO consultations. Moscow and Beijing issued coordinated condemnations, warning that the strikes risked plunging the region into irreversible chaos. In Tehran, the mood was a mix of defiance and controlled anger. Khamenei's aides described the supreme leader as calm but determined. The message he wanted broadcast was simple: Iran's deterrence remained intact. "Dream on," he told the crowd, turning Trump's boast into a national rallying cry. State media quickly looped his words across every major outlet. Within hours, murals appeared in central Tehran showing a caricature of Trump asleep under a US flag blanket, the caption reading, "Keep dreaming." Behind the public bravado, analysts believe Iranian engineers were assessing real damage. Satellite imagery suggested at least one of the Natanz surface facilities had suffered structural collapse. Western intelligence estimates pointed to a temporary suspension of uranium enrichment, but not its elimination. Within weeks, IAEA inspectors confirmed renewed activity at peripheral sites. That quiet technical recovery allowed Tehran to declare victory without revealing the cost. Officials framed it as proof of resilience under aggression, turning a setback into propaganda fuel. Meanwhile, Trump continued his verbal offensive. Appearing on Fox News, he proclaimed that Iran was no longer the bully of the Middle East, insisting its nuclear capability had been destroyed. For his political allies, it was evidence that American deterrence had returned. For critics, it was another episode of performative foreign policy aimed at the 2026 midterms. When asked later whether Washington was open to negotiations, Trump offered a hint of flexibility cloaked in bravado. To Iran, he said, "This is not said out of weakness. There's no weakness, but we are ready when you are. It'll be the best decision Iran has ever made." That statement, too, drew immediate reaction from Tehran. Foreign Minister Hossein Amir-Abdollahian responded on X, formerly Twitter, writing, "Iran does not negotiate under bombs." The exchange underscored the paradox at the heart of the crisis, both sides claiming victory, neither seeking compromise. As the standoff deepened, Washington's domestic politics began to intrude. During a White House press gaggle days later, a reporter informed Trump that his former national security advisor, John Bolton, had just been indicted by a Maryland grand jury. The president, caught off guard, called Bolton a bad guy, brushing off the case with a casual, "That's the way it goes." The moment illustrated how easily the administration's attention could shift from the Middle East to internal drama, even amid one of its most consequential military operations. Inside Iran, however, the strikes had triggered a different kind of recalibration. The Revolutionary Guards announced new missile tests and displayed footage of underground silos packed with Sejil and Khorramshahr rockets. Commanders vowed to expand deterrence against any further act of aggression. The timing was deliberate, a public message that Iran's retaliatory capability remained alive. Regional allies took notice. Hezbollah's leadership in Beirut hailed Khamenei's defiance as proof of divine protection. Iraqi Shia militias issued statements of solidarity, while in Syria, banners appeared declaring, "Dreams will not destroy resistance." In Israel, officials released limited details of their coordination with the US, emphasizing intelligence sharing rather than direct participation. Privately, Israeli analysts expressed concern that the strikes could accelerate, not halt, Iran's weaponization drive, pushing it further underground and beyond the reach of inspectors. By late October, international observers described a fragile calm. No further US attacks had followed. Iran had not retaliated directly, but the rhetorical war persisted, with Khamenei using nearly every public appearance to reference Trump's dreaming remark. For Iranian audiences, it became shorthand for Western arrogance, a theme woven through Friday sermons and nightly talk shows. Economic consequences soon followed. Oil markets wavered amid fears of escalation in the Strait of Hormuz. Brent crude briefly spiked above $100 a barrel before stabilizing as Gulf producers increased output. The IMF warned that sustained tension could shave up to 0.7% off global GDP growth. Diplomatically, the episode further isolated Tehran, but also strengthened ties with Moscow and Beijing. Within weeks, Iranian delegations traveled to both capitals, signing new energy and defense agreements framed as a strategic shield against unilateralism. Chinese state media praised Iran's calm resistance, while Russia's foreign ministry accused Washington of neo-colonial adventurism. In Washington, Trump's team presented the strikes as a pillar of his Peace Through Strength 2.0 doctrine, a modern echo of Reagan-era rhetoric. Supporters claimed it had forced Iran to think twice. Critics in Congress warned that bypassing diplomatic channels risked triggering a new arms race. By early autumn, intelligence leaks suggested Iran's nuclear research continued at undisclosed facilities deeper underground, perhaps 300 meters beneath the Alborz Mountains. The US Department of Energy declined to comment, but satellite imagery showed new tunnel construction near Qam. Through it all, Khamenei maintained his posture of defiance. In another speech marking the anniversary of the 1979 revolution, he again mocked Trump. He dreams of victory. We live in reality. The crowd chanted back, "Dreams will fade. Iran will remain." For many Iranians, the phrase, "keep dreaming," has taken on new life, appearing on T-shirts, murals, even songs circulating online. It encapsulates both pride and fatigue. Pride in resilience, fatigue from perpetual confrontation. In Washington, attention has turned to the next phase, whether to open indirect talks through Oman and Qatar or double down with new sanctions. The State Department remains divided. Some advisors see opportunity in Trump's offer of a deal. Others fear it would be seen as capitulation after boasting of total destruction. The world, meanwhile, watches a familiar cycle: attack, denial, defiance, diplomacy. The Iran-US relationship has long oscillated between hostility and hesitant outreach, with moments of near war punctuated by fleeting chances for dialogue. This time, the stakes may be higher. Both leaders are politically invested in their narratives. Trump as the strongman who delivered decisive blows, Khamenei as the guardian who repelled foreign aggression. Neither can afford to blink first. As winter approaches, diplomats warn that any misstep could reignite confrontation across the Gulf. The UN Secretary-General has urged restraint, calling for a return to dialogue before the dream becomes a nightmare. But for now, the imagery remains powerful. One leader claiming he destroyed an enemy's nuclear might, another laughing it off as a fantasy. Between them lies a region forever caught between illusion and reality, where words can be as explosive as bombs, and every dream has the potential to spark a new conflict.